Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, every week bringing you a communication expert whose advice will help you and your business with your management, your sales, your customer service, your teamwork, and yes, your profits. Today, I have someone that I have had the privilege of hearing in person 3 times. Not only that, he and I co-presented. So I am very familiar with his offerings, with his presentation style, and believe me, you are going to benefit tremendously. A little bio background: Gregg Burkhalter is a recognized authority on personal branding and LinkedIn. He's helped countless professionals in the United States and abroad define their personal brand using LinkedIn. It's interesting that Gregg spent the first part of his professional career behind the microphone, so a microphone doesn't frighten him today. He did that at radio stations in Savannah, Jacksonville, Charleston, and Atlanta. Following his radio years, Gregg worked in national music marketing and distribution. Today, Gregg is known by many as the LinkedIn guy. He offers one-on-one and group training sessions, corporate presentations, and webinars. He's also a frequent speaker at civic and chamber events and area universities. In fact, I sometimes get tired just looking at his calendar. There's so much going on. And so now I know you're eager, as I am, to have Gregg Burkhalter join us. Hello, Gregg.
Hello, Mr. Bill. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Always great when I associate with you, not only for the personal benefit, but in addition for what I learn each time. Now, starting out, the first question that I want to ask you is, what is this bit about you being the LinkedIn guy? How did that moniker come about?
Bill, I would love to take full credit and tell you I had a plan from the beginning. I didn't. What basically happened was, for about 3 decades, I worked in music and broadcasting. In fact, music was my main love, and I enjoyed doing it. I started out on air at 16 years old. I transitioned into wholesale music distribution. The latter part of my career, for the last decade or so, I was in Atlanta, providing all the music for all the truck stops and convenience stores coast to coast, which meant most of my days were spent arm in arm, hand in hand, working with major country artists to develop a marketing strategy to put their products in truck stops. I mean, I was living the dream I always wanted to live until about 5 years ago, and that job came to a screeching halt. And when it did, I was at a serious state. I had no brand really outside the music industry. I had never networked in my life. In fact, a friend of mine, several years younger than me, actually reached out his hand to help. He says, why don't you come to my house? Let's strategize a little bit about what you can do to find a new job. So I went to his house, and I remember sitting at his kitchen table. We started talking. I left that table with 2 bits of strategy. One is I had to have a business card printed up that looked like I had a job. He told me it was called a networking card, and I needed to be on LinkedIn. So I went out and I got that business card printed up, walked into the first business I saw, which happened to be a digital marketing company, walked inside and said, I'm looking for a job and I have a networking card. And I asked them, by the way, what is networking? I'm not really clear on that. And I could tell they were laughing under their breath. They felt so sorry for me. They stopped what they were doing. We sat down in the lobby and we started talking, and we talked for about an hour. And after about an hour or so of talking, they offered me a job. So I called my buddy up and I said, hey, I got a job. I'm going to be a digital marketing consultant. First words out of my friend's mouth was, are you on LinkedIn? I said, I'm scared of it. I don't know what to do. He goes, come back to my house. So I went back to his house. This was about 4.5 years ago. Went back to his house and we set up my very first LinkedIn account. And when I left his kitchen table, I became like everyone else on LinkedIn. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, but I came up with a strategy out of the gate, either right or wrong. Here was my strategy from day one. Can I build relationships online like I do in person? I'm going to try. I'm going to fast forward 1 year into my LinkedIn use. I really have no clue if what I'm doing is having impact or not, but I got my first indicator 1 year in when I got an email from the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce to me. By the way, I'm not a member of the Alpharetta Chamber, so I thought it was weird they'd email me. I opened up the email, and the chamber has told me they're starting a brand new education academy, and they want to know, will I come and be their very first speaker and do a LinkedIn workshop? I'm totally confused because, like I said, I don't belong to the chamber. So I wrote them back and said, you've got the wrong Gregg in your address book. You need to check that. They immediately wrote me back and said, we know who you are. Are you going to do it? So at that point, that was my very first indicator that something was happening. So I did a little soul searching, and I said, you know what? If I really concentrate on this, can I become the LinkedIn guy? I'm going to try. So in January 2015, I started trying. And in June of 2015, I walked into my boss and had that conversation that I didn't see coming. The conversation was, I'm going to be the LinkedIn guy. Do you want to share my brand and go on my journey with me? Otherwise, if we can't agree on terms, I'm going to start my own company. So we couldn't quite nail down the terms of that agreement. So in June 2015, the LinkedIn guy was born. And that guy had a great first year. Spoke to about 50 to 75 groups. Did 4 broadcast interviews. I was training people like Silicon Valley engineers in California, C-level executives in New York, local TV celebrities. Great first year. In fact, almost to the week of my 1-year anniversary as the LinkedIn guy, I heard the news. Microsoft bought LinkedIn, and I got a little concerned. Main reason I'm concerned is I don't work for LinkedIn, and I don't work for Microsoft. So I was like, what is that going to hold for the LinkedIn guy? Later that same day, I got an email from someone at a Microsoft.com email address. Not only was I concerned, I was rattled at that point. So rattled, it took me about an hour to click on that email. And when I clicked on it, that email said, Gregg, I guess you heard the news. Microsoft has purchased LinkedIn. Would you come to our Microsoft store in Lenox Mall and do a LinkedIn workshop? And I went, are you kidding me? You know who I am? So that was my first year anniversary present. My second anniversary year present was this. Microsoft called again. 1 month ago, I went back and did it again. So the LinkedIn guy story is a story that was not scripted, but it's a story I ran with, and I'm so blessed with the opportunities it provides me. So Bill, thank you for asking that question. I enjoy telling that story.
To me, Gregg, yours is a wonderful example, illustration of how a person can transition successfully from one career to another, even from one industry to another. And there are several factors, I would think, that helped you succeed. You went from being very green to ripening completely and becoming the go-to guy when people want to learn LinkedIn. One of the points that I see, and I know we want to move on to other things, but certainly one of the points to me that's very important is that you didn't try to do it all on your own, what knowledge and initiative you had. You went to people who were well-informed, who were willing to help. And that to me is a major lesson for all of us. Don't be afraid to ask. There are people who are eager to help, and until you ask and get that help, you'll have a tough road making a transition. But when you get that network, as you call it, it simplifies it, doesn't it?
That is correct. In fact, when you first define your brand and you kind of decide what your path is going to be, there's a couple of ways you have to grow your brand. The very first way you grow your brand is doing what I did. I went out and I met as many people as I could. I went to every networking opportunity I could think of. In fact, I believe I was clocking about 7 to 10 networking events per week. So I initially built my brand in person via people I met at networking events. And what I did was I took LinkedIn and I used it as a tool to take these in-person relationships, transfer them to the digital realm, and use LinkedIn as a tool to nurture and grow those relationships. That is the process I use. And the one thing I learned early on about building your personal brand in the digital age is this. You can't do it by yourself. You don't just say, here is my personal brand, believe it or not. You have to have people that actually are going to support you in your journey to grow your personal professional brand. The way they build that trust is by seeing you out there, seeing you being consistent in every way you present yourself. So for example, if I say I'm the LinkedIn guy and I enjoy helping people, I better know LinkedIn and I better be seen as a guy helping people. Because if you think it's hard bringing people on board to support your brand in the early years, get your brand solidly built and then suddenly slow down on what you do and the way you present yourself, those partners will pull away from you. And those people will pull away if you start lessening your approach. And when they pull away, they're not coming back. So you got to maintain it. So my 3Ds of personal branding, the way I approached it was this. I had to define my brand, which I did. Second thing I did was develop a strategy on how I'm going to grow my brand. And I grew my brand, as I said, in person and online. Those were the first two steps. The last step and the third D in growing your brand is a really hard step. And it's a step most people want to get to because it's an honor to have this privilege. The third D is you have to deliver on your brand promises. That's a tough one. Like I said, if you promise you're something and you have certain qualifications and a certain aura about you, people want to see that consistently. So you have to always deliver on that.
There's a definition you've given of branding that I have benefited from, and I know many of your listeners at these presentations have benefited from. You say, and I'd like for you to elaborate on this, you say that your brand is not who you say you are. Your brand is who everybody else says you are. Tell us about that, Gregg.
Well, one of the misconceptions on LinkedIn is my LinkedIn profile is my brand. Your LinkedIn profile is not your brand. It's what you want your brand to be. Your goal is to get people to believe that's your brand. So you'll know your brand is growing once you hear others saying and talking about your brand back to you. Until you hear that, you're still building your brand. So get on LinkedIn, be consistent. By the way, the tone of LinkedIn is not, let me tell you about myself. The tone of LinkedIn on your personal page is, I'm a very knowledgeable person and I enjoy helping people and I'm humble. The whole salesman side of like, I want to sell you something, here's my pricing, that voice is reserved for your company page. The problem on LinkedIn comes in when you start using the company page voice on your personal page, people don't like to hear that.
Well, this reminds me of what to me, and I'm sure to many others, is the major turnoff. When you connect with someone on LinkedIn, they send you an invitation, you accept it, and instantly, and you know it's an auto send, you get a pitch from them. Here's my product, here's my service. And you and I know, Gregg, that sales doesn't happen the second that you meet somebody. I don't know anybody that impressive that we go back to that you must know, like, and trust someone. So it ties in with what you were saying, that if you sell, pitch, people will either disconnect or they'll start ignoring you.
I tell you, I had an example of that happen to me this week. I connected with a gentleman who I was not totally familiar with, but he passed my screening process. And about 2 days after he connected, I got a phone call. And he is sales pitching me on the phone. And he must have felt bad because I said to him, you realize who you just called? You just called the LinkedIn guy and tried to sell me 1 day after connecting with me. So he made a bad decision on that one. So he's no longer a connection, but hopefully he learned from that situation. So yeah, what has changed in the world of sales right now is people trust more the word they're here coming from others about your company, the employees of your company, more than they actually care about what your company's saying about yourself. That's why the personal brand is so important. A decade or so ago, if you'd have went to your boss and said, hey, I want to grow my personal brand, his first thought would be, you're looking for a job. But that's changed because companies now recognize the value of their employees' personal brand. And in fact, they're encouraging their employees to get on social media with a strategy to grow and strengthen their personal brand, which in return helps the company brand. So branding, building relationships, social selling, as some people like to call it. I call it building relationships and creating opportunities for yourself is what I call it.
One of the things that gets people very frustrated about the social media, and certainly that includes LinkedIn, people will often post online, my gosh, I was just learning how to operate this, how to function, and all of a sudden they've made a lot of changes that I don't understand. When Microsoft purchased LinkedIn, you mentioned to me, Gregg, that there would be some changes coming. So let's take a couple of minutes and talk, first of all, about what changes have happened recently that our listeners, and by the way, we're on podcast as well as on video. Our viewers and listeners need to know, what are some of the recent changes on LinkedIn that you want to alert us to, and tell us how to use them beneficially?
When Microsoft first purchased LinkedIn, I got to be honest with you, I was a little concerned how that transaction would work out. What initially happened when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, they turned off some of the features and transferred some of those to the paid versions. But what has occurred in the last 6 months, because of LinkedIn feedback from their users, they have reinstalled some of the features they had taken away initially, and they've actually ramped up the game. I think LinkedIn right now is a much better platform than it was 1 year ago. For example, some of the things going on in the last few months on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is rolling out what is called native video. That's the ability to record a video on your phone and load it directly to LinkedIn. No YouTube, no Vimeo, directly to LinkedIn. Right now, that particular feature is being rolled out, so not everyone has it. But my understanding is by the end of the year, everyone will have the ability to record a video on your phone and load it directly to LinkedIn. But I'll make a recommendation to you. Don't abuse that feature. Because if you start doing too many videos and you start getting obnoxious, people can do one of two things to mess up your branding process. One is they can hide all your updates and never see another video from you or anything else, or they can remove the connection. So please use video sparingly. Another thing LinkedIn has talked about and they're testing right now is something that excites me. It's called the mentor service. If you're looking for a mentor to help you in the business world, inside of your LinkedIn profile, you can let it be known, I'm looking for a mentor. Or if you're like me, I want to mentor other people. I can let LinkedIn know that I'm open to mentoring people on personal branding, and LinkedIn will show my information to mentees who are looking for a mentor. So that's a pretty cool feature. Later this year on the LinkedIn mobile app, LinkedIn is going to have a feature where if you're at a networking event or by chance at a trade show and you bring out your cell phone and you fire up your LinkedIn app will tell you every one of your connections that's in that venue. Can you imagine being at a networking event and finding out all of your connections in the room so you know who's there? That's amazing. A couple of other new things before we move on. LinkedIn now allows you on the iPhone, when you're sharing photos as part of an update, normally you put one photo at a time. Now LinkedIn allows you to put multiple photos. You could actually load a gallery to your post when you load something. So that's pretty amazing. And the last thing briefly is LinkedIn allows you to see when people are online. So right now, by default, I can tell which LinkedIn users are online and which LinkedIn users are not online. Pretty amazing.
Now, how will we know as LinkedIn users when we have the opportunity to produce the live video? I think you said not everybody has it yet.
I don't have it yet, but from what I understand, you will get a notification. Or if you don't get a notification, one thing I'm sure of you can tell is this. When you go to share an update from your phone, usually you see a camera icon, which allows you to attach a picture or take a picture. There will be a video icon there next to the camera once you have the ability. So that's one way to know. I'm anxiously looking forward to it. I think LinkedIn is being very smart in rolling it out stage by stage to get a feel for what it's like and not put it out there so all of a sudden we're all overwhelmed with video content.
I like very much your precaution that when we get that option to produce live videos for LinkedIn, that we don't overdo it. I think you and I have both seen that happen on Facebook when somebody has this new little toy where certainly video production and live Facebook is so much simpler than what we had to go through 10 years ago to produce a video. And some people, I will have to say, because it's simple and because they get people who tune in, next thing you know, as you say, they're almost bombarding us with them. And so a video is not special if it's there every day. It's not special. It's certainly not special if it's there twice a day. So we need to do that in moderation. Gregg, something else that I've heard from many people that I see posting and commenting on LinkedIn, there are quite a few business people who say LinkedIn is becoming diluted. There are too many people who are treating it like Facebook. What's your observation about that?
Well, I have noticed that LinkedIn has consciously, in my opinion, tried to get LinkedIn to be more of a Facebook interactive feel. In other words, the way the program works has more of a Facebook feel. But the one thing you have to remember is this: there are two totally different social media channels. LinkedIn is the home of your personal professional brand. It's going to be from now until you quit working. Facebook might show your personality, but LinkedIn is your professional brand. So going back to the videos we discussed earlier, I believe when videos start rolling out, I think the video should show maybe a slightly more casual you than you normally would see, but not a Facebook type you, okay? So keep it professional when you start using video. Keep your verbiage and the way you interact with people on LinkedIn professional, because again, it is your personal brand and it's going to follow you now until you quit working.
One indication of how it's LinkedIn has moved a little bit more toward the personal side, I think it's probably just in the last few months or so that they started posting birthdays on there. Wish this person a happy birthday. And of course, we know that Facebook has had that, I believe, all along.
Well, LinkedIn from day one, in my opinion, has been about relationships, okay? I can prove it to you by a couple of ways. If you'll go and look at your LinkedIn profile and you look down the way your information is stacked on your profile, you have your top area, your summary area with your photo, then you get down to your experience area, then you get down to your education, and then the next area on your LinkedIn profile, above organizations you belong to, above certifications, courses you've taken, above all that is volunteer experience. It's about other people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not an I channel. LinkedIn is an us channel. It's about helping other people. And as you said, on LinkedIn, it's about building relationships and helping others grow their brand. And in return, they'll help you do the same for you.
I think I would go back to something that somebody told me when I first started as an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, communication consultant. Back in 1996, I showed someone what was going to be my website. And this experienced person said, well, Bill, that's well and good, all these honors and achievements you have, but those are features. People really want to know benefits. How are they going to benefit from dealing with you? What's the end result? How will they profit? How will their business profit? That's very important to keep in mind.
Right. Well, the way I can help them is I have the innate ability to give them that opinion that other people think and they never hear. That's valuable. So
and you do it candidly and constructively.
In other words, I actually know ahead of time who needs my assistance, but one thing I recognized early on is even though I recognize who needs my help, if I approach that person and say, hey, you need help with your personal brand, that's offensive. So that's why I speak so much, so people can hear me speak and then engage with me later after the event to give them some consultation and some help. Once they approach me, at that point, they really want to hear what I have to say. And once they hire me and pay me to do that, I'm going to give them everything I have. So I help them figure out where they are from a perspective of what people think about them. I encourage them to Google their name and see where they are in the digital realm. I encourage them to talk to other people around them to get feedback on, hey, when you hear my name, what do you think? And what I'm looking for is not fun-loving. I'm looking for a business term, professional, a very deep thinker. I'm looking for those words. And once you Google your name, figure out what people think about you, and you look inwardly and say, what am I all about? With that bit of information, you can kind of fine-tune what kind of personal brand you're going for.
Gregg, this has been a fascinating conversation, packed with information that all of us need, coming from a genuine authority. As I said at the outset, I've heard you speak 3 times. I co-presented with you. Beyond that, you came and worked for 2 hours with me on my LinkedIn profile. Took me, as I would say, behind that screen that I didn't know how to get beyond, and you improved my profile tremendously. I continue to look on you as a great resource. I encourage all of our listeners and viewers to get in touch with you. How would they do that?
Well, if they want to do a Google search, if you go to Google and type in the LinkedIn guy, I should be the #1 listing. I'm very proud that that happened. Secondly, you can go to my website, which is my name, greggburkhalter.com. Or you can go, you won't believe this, Bill, I actually have a LinkedIn page, a profile. Go to my profile. It's LinkedIn.com bit.ly/in/Gregg Burkhalter. And I would love to give any of you a free consultation, answer any of your questions. Just let me know how I can help you.
Thank you, Greg. And now that you've given your contact information, I will share mine as well. As the Biz, that's B-I-Z, Biz Communication Guy. My website is bizcommunicationguy.com. Invite you to visit my website, sign up for my newsletter. On YouTube there, on the link to YouTube, you can subscribe to these videos. Also, you can subscribe on my website to the podcast version of the Biz Communication Show. Sign up for my free, everybody's favorite word, free newsletter as well. Again, many thanks to Gregg Burkhalter for being our highly informative and challenging guest today. Greg, we want you to be with us again to inform us. I'm sure you'll do that a couple of months down the line.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for your support. It means a lot to me.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to all of you who joined us today on the Biz Communication Show. We look forward to having you with us next week when once more we bring a highly renowned, respected communication authority to help you strengthen your communication skills in your business. Thanks for being with us. I'm Bill Lampton.